The question of the marital status of Jesus has long fascinated scholars, theologians, and believers alike. While mainstream Christian teachings portray Jesus as single and celibate, recent scholarship and the discovery of alternative texts have sparked renewed interest in this subject. These new perspectives challenge us to look more closely at an age-old question, inviting deeper examination and reflection. Our goal in this exploration isn't to provide a final answer, but rather to offer insights into the debate surrounding Jesus' marital status. We'll examine this issue from historical, theological, and cultural angles, encouraging a broader understanding of the topic. Throughout this exploration, we will look at the following key areas: the historical context of Jesus' life and the cultural expectations of marriage in his time, the silence of the canonical Gospels on this particular subject, the role of Mary Magdalene, and the insights provided by non-canonical texts, such as the Gnostic Gospels, the theological implications of these discussions, as well as modern cultural interpretations, concluding reflections on how faith and inquiry can coexist as we seek to understand these mysteries. As we dive into this fascinating topic, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll stay connected to thoughtful discussions like this one, where we explore the deeper questions of faith, history, and theology. Let's begin this journey together. In the first century, Jewish society was deeply shaped by religious and cultural norms, many of which revolved around the concept of marriage. Marriage was not merely a social contract, but a religious duty, especially for Jewish men. From a young age, Jewish boys were raised with the expectation that they would one day marry and contribute to the perpetuation of the community and the faith. Marriage was tied to the commandment to be fruitful and multiply, a directive from the Torah that played a fundamental role in shaping societal expectations. For a Jewish man, being unmarried in adulthood was highly unusual, often seen as neglecting a crucial part of his religious obligation. The concept of celibacy, while present in certain fringe groups, was the exception rather than the rule. The Essenes, a sect known for their ascetic practices, were one of the few Jewish groups that valued celibacy. Living in isolated communities, they sought to live pure and holy lives, often eschewing marriage to dedicate themselves fully to God. This practice of celibacy, however, was far from mainstream and was often seen as an eccentric or radical choice within the broader Jewish community. Most Jewish men, especially those who were religious leaders or held positions of authority, were expected to marry, father children, and serve as examples of faithfulness to God's commandments. Given this cultural backdrop, Jesus' life raises questions regarding these societal expectations. Jesus was widely regarded as a rabbi, a teacher who attracted followers with his wisdom and knowledge of the Scriptures. For such a figure to remain unmarried would have been highly unusual. The absence of any mention of a wife or children in the Gospels has led many to speculate about whether this was an intentional choice on Jesus' part or simply a detail omitted by the Gospel writers because it was not relevant to their theological message. The rarity of an unmarried religious figure, particularly one as prominent as Jesus, makes his potential celibacy stand out in historical terms. It also sets the stage for a deeper exploration into whether Jesus' unmarried state, if true, was a deliberate and meaningful decision within the context of his mission. The canonical Gospels, the primary sources for information about Jesus' life and teachings, are conspicuously silent about Jesus' marital status. Nowhere in these texts do the authors explicitly state whether Jesus was married or unmarried. For many, this silence is notable, as marriage was such a prevalent institution during the time. But the Gospels, particularly those of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are not biographical accounts in the modern sense. They focus more on the teachings, miracles, death, and resurrection of Jesus than on the personal details of his life. The Gospel writers were primarily concerned with conveying the theological significance of Jesus as the Messiah, the Son of God, rather than providing a detailed biography. As a result, many aspects of Jesus' personal life, including whether he was married, remain unaddressed. The absence of explicit information about Jesus' personal relationships has led to a wide array of interpretations. Some scholars argue that this silence suggests that Jesus was celibate, as his mission and focus were entirely spiritual, leaving no room for earthly ties like marriage. Others, however, caution against reading too much into this omission, suggesting that the Gospels may simply not have seen the need to mention it, given their theological focus. The cultural assumption at the time was that most Jewish men, especially those of maturity and status, would have been married unless they were explicitly part of a celibate sect like the Essenes. Therefore, the silence of the Gospels could be seen as inconclusive, reflecting the Gospel writers' priorities rather than providing definitive evidence about Jesus' marital status. Mary Magdalene emerges as a central figure in both the canonical Gospels and in non-canonical writings, especially when it comes to discussions surrounding Jesus' personal life. In the canonical Gospels, she is mentioned prominently, particularly in the context of Jesus' resurrection. Mary Magdalene is one of the first witnesses to the empty tomb and is often depicted as having a close, almost privileged relationship with Jesus, though the Gospels do not suggest anything explicitly romantic or marital in nature. Her significance within the resurrection narratives has long intrigued scholars and lay people alike, leading to deeper investigations into her role in Jesus' life. The intrigue surrounding Mary Magdalene is further fueled by non-canonical texts, particularly Gnostic writings. The Gospel of Philip, for example, refers to Mary Magdalene as Jesus' companion and suggests a special relationship between them. In the context of Gnostic theology, where hidden knowledge and mystical interpretations of Jesus' teachings are emphasized, Mary Magdalene is often portrayed as one of Jesus' closest disciples, perhaps even his confidant. The Gospel of Mary, another Gnostic text, goes even further in elevating her role, presenting her as possessing special knowledge and understanding of Jesus' teachings, in some cases more so than the male disciples. These non-canonical writings have sparked considerable debate among scholars and theologians. Some argue that the references to Mary Magdalene as Jesus' companion may suggest a deeper, possibly even romantic relationship, though others caution that this interpretation may be reading too much into metaphorical or symbolic language. Additionally, these Gnostic texts were written significantly later than the canonical Gospels and reflect a different theological outlook, one that diverges from mainstream Christian thought. Nonetheless, these writings have contributed to ongoing speculation about whether Jesus and Mary Magdalene shared a more intimate relationship, a narrative that has been popularized in modern culture through works like the Da Vinci Code. The idea of Jesus being married, especially to Mary Magdalene, has profound theological implications. For much of Christian tradition, Jesus' celibacy has been seen as symbolic of his total devotion to God and his divine mission. Many theologians argue that Jesus' choice to remain unmarried underscores his singular focus on the spiritual rather than the worldly. His celibacy is often viewed as part of his divine nature, marking him as distinct from ordinary humans who are subject to the natural desires and obligations of marriage and family life. From this perspective, Jesus' celibacy is seen as integral to his role as the Messiah and the Son of God. On the other hand, some theologians have proposed that a married Jesus would not necessarily undermine his divine nature. In fact, they argue that marriage could have enhanced his identification with the human experience. As Christians believe in the dual nature of Jesus as both fully human and fully divine, it is not inconceivable that marriage could have been a part of his human experience. If Jesus had been married, it might have further illustrated his solidarity with humanity, emphasizing that he shared in the full range of human experiences, including those of love, companionship, and family. However, this view is often seen as controversial because it challenges long-held theological interpretations of Jesus' life and mission. The question of whether Jesus was married has been significantly shaped by popular culture in recent years. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code, though a work of fiction, brought the idea of a married Jesus, specifically one married to Mary Magdalene, into mainstream consciousness. The novel's success sparked widespread interest in the topic, leading many to explore the historical and theological basis for such claims. While the Da Vinci Code took considerable creative liberties with historical facts and religious traditions, it nonetheless fueled curiosity and debate about the historical Jesus and his potential relationships. At the same time, modern scholarship, fueled by discoveries like the Nag Hammadi texts and other ancient writings, has kept the academic debate alive. Archaeological findings and the ongoing study of non-canonical texts continue to provide scholars with new material to analyze. Although much of this evidence remains inconclusive, it has nonetheless expanded the conversation about Jesus' life and how modern readers understand it. The scholarly debate on Jesus' marital status is likely to continue for the foreseeable future as new discoveries and interpretations emerge. Ultimately, the question of whether Jesus was married remains unanswered. There is no definitive evidence to either confirm or deny the possibility, leaving the matter open to speculation. While non-canonical texts and historical conjecture offer intriguing possibilities, they do not provide a conclusive answer. What is clear, however, is that Jesus' life and teachings continue to inspire millions, regardless of his marital status. His message of love, compassion, and redemption remains at the heart of the Christian faith. In conclusion, while the idea of a married Jesus is fascinating and has sparked much discussion, it does not change the essence of who Jesus was and what he represents to Christians around the world. His life, as depicted in the Gospels, remains a profound example of devotion to God and humanity. Whether married or celibate, Jesus' mission and message continue to resonate across centuries, calling believers to reflect on their own faith and understanding. This journey of inquiry, rather than diminishing one's faith, can lead to a deeper and more nuanced appreciation of Jesus Christ. If you've enjoyed exploring these thought-provoking topics with us and would like to continue diving into more discussions like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Join our community as we continue to explore, learn, and grow in our understanding together.